It is that time of year where the veil is thinnest and the leaves turn from green to red. We enjoy a rainy day indoors with a candle and a cup of tea and also a really giant cinnamon roll that they gave me for free at the bakery because I love this city. And so here I am about to recommend you a couple of my favorite fall reads because fall is my favorite fucking season. Yeah! Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you've never been here before, hi, my name is Grace and fall is my favorite fucking season. So since I really need to give myself a break and do some short videos, I've compiled a list of books that I've read that I think fit the fall season very well. And so I'm going to give you 5 of my favorites in these categories that I just now came up with. I have creepy, which is perfect for the upcoming holiday, the spooky season, the All Hallows Eve, Halloween. And then we have classic. You'll see what I put down for classic because fall is such a classic holiday. It's the time for mulled wine and cider and cinnamon rolls and tea. You just gotta feel classy in your cardigan, you know what I mean? And then we have cool, because fall is a cool holiday, not just because it's temperature, but also because it's cool. It's a cool holiday. Then we have cozy, which of course, as I talked about in my intro, fall is a time to be cozy. It's a time to stay indoors because it's chilly outside and can be windy. And here in the East Coast, we've had a lot of rain. So definitely a time to stay cozy inside. And then we have cute, because now it's time to wear our cute little cozy outfits, such as I said, the cardigans, the boots, the sneakers, the scarves. I just want to keep this nice and short, fun little fall video, and let's just get right on to it. Take a sip of my definitely too hot tea. Definitely too hot, but let's put that down. So first up for creepy, we have a fun favorite. Since it's fall, it's also a time for dark academia, and my creepy pick for this fall is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. Honestly, dark academia isn't actually the strongest genres of mine. I tried to read The Secret History and I just couldn't really dive into it as much as I could. I'll definitely try to finish the thing, but I feel like when it comes to dark academia, once it started with The Secret History and it never really branched away from that. Although I know that there are definitely more examples out there. I have them on my shelf, such as Babel and the Atlas 6. We're just gonna focus on my pick for now, which is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This follows a group of students who are in a very exclusive Shakespeare class, and one day one of them gets killed and the rest are left to pick up the pieces of this fracture within their very selective Shakespearean group. And how does Shakespeare factor into all of this is very exciting, but also quite menacing. The Bard's influence on these kids is not simply because it's some sort of highfalutin art or anything like that. A lot of other characters point out, like, Shakespeare, are you serious? But honestly, when it comes to the influence of Shakespeare on these kids, it's not to be trifled with. There's a reason why you don't say Macbeth in the theater, of course. You gotta call it the Scottish play. And it's all about the struggle, not just within the group, but also within themselves. When I finished reading this book, it left me with a sense of something like unease, but also something like hope. Definitely this is a book that keeps you on the edge of your seat all the way up until the very end. And I would recommend this to people who are fans of Shakespeare. And even if you're not a huge fan of Shakespeare, I would recommend giving this book a try. There's a reason why a lot of stories today still harken, I think that's the word, back to Shakespeare's plays and stories. And if you are a fan of The Secret History, absolutely go for it. There is a very attractive paperback edition out, and I wanted to buy it, but I really need to cut back on book buying these days. But it's a very attractive, like, beautiful blue paperback edition that I highly recommend you try and get your hands on if you're interested. Moving on to my classic pick, there were so many things to choose from, but I of course had to go back to my personal favorite classic, and that is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Similarly, there was also a very attractive illustrated hardback edition that came out recently, and of course I really wanted to buy that as well, but I have to cut back on my spending. I am still unemployed. It is so not fun being like having to hold back on everything. But anyway, back to Frankenstein. This was written in the early 1800s and is widely regarded to be the first sci-fi novel. Of course, if you don't know what Frankenstein is, well, okay, I'm going to tell you right now. It is a book that you should read. Of course, because it was written in the 1800s, don't let that stop you from giving this book a try. It like sucks you in right away with its depth into the life and the creation of Dr. Victor Frankenstein and his desire to play God, his desire to reanimate life. But when he actually succeeds in his creation and has to bear the responsibility of playing God and like taking care of this creation, he couldn't handle it. And then what is the creation left to do but to either hearken back to its nature or to try and fight back against it and try and make something for itself in the world, because that could not accept him for who he is. It's an exploration of one of mankind's greatest questions. Are we born who we are, or do we make ourselves who we are? That is always a question that has, I don't want to say plagued me since I was a teenager and, having my self-identity issues, but this is a question that's been on my mind for years. So Frankenstein definitely is a classic book that I recommend, especially for fall. This is like the peak book for curling up next to a fireplace. Don't actually start a fire in your home, please, unless you have a fireplace and you know how to use it right. And I think with its themes of life and death and coming into fall, and it's the changing of the seasons from spring to winter, the season of life transitioning into the season associated with death. I think, if you want to just, be a little philosophical and have a moment to think in a dark room with a fireplace roaring, what better book to do this with than Frankenstein? I went to the Mary Shelley house, by the way. Yeah, it was called the Mary Shelley house. I went to it in Bath, England. Americans say Bath, but Bath, England. It's a very fun little museum. And right next to it was the Pride and Prejudice Jane Austen tea house. So, Bath contains multitudes. So my cool selection for fall is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This is a YA Own Voices Latinx trans story set on Dia de los Muertos, which if I remember correctly, Dia de los Muertos I think might have happened, because if I remember correctly, it either happens in September or it happens in November. But whichever day it is a fall holiday celebrated primarily in Mexico, but in also a lot of Latin American countries. It is the Day of the Dead, where they honor their ancestors by leaving offerings on ofrendas and visiting cemeteries to reminisce with their families and loved ones. Appropriately titled, Cemetery Boys follows a young trans maid named Yadriel who wants to follow the family tradition of being a brujo, but because he is a trans man, his family still doesn't quite accept him as a proper brujo because of his gender identity. But he makes contact with a ghost named Julian who has become untethered and needs to be guided to the afterlife. And Yadriel thinks if he is able to complete this, he'll be accepted as a brujo by his family. But there is more working behind the scenes. So I'll leave that to you to read it to find out what happens. But I love the story because it is beautifully steeped in Latinx culture. Honestly, I could see the plot coming from a mile away, but the characters and the descriptions and the way that family is portrayed in this book really brought everything to life for me. And that's why I love this book to pieces. I still have my copy and I highly recommend it if you haven't read it yet. And also Aiden Thomas's other work, including the other one that I've read, which I talked about in last year's October wrap up, which was the Sunbearer Trials, another book that I highly recommend and also very steeped in Latinx culture. So definitely give that a read. Next, my cozy choice. This is probably no surprise to anyone who's heard of this book, but that is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. If you love D&D, you should give this one a try. This follows an orc warrior named Vi, I believe. She is done with the whole D&D adventuring team shtick. She wants to settle down, open a coffee shop, and she does exactly that. With the help of a magical artifact from her last expedition, she opens a coffee shop with coffee and lattes, and she steadily grows her business with new employees and new goodies to serve in her coffee shop. There is some conflict, but overall it is very low stakes, very easy read, following along with these characters as they just develop their business, add more to their menu. It's definitely something that is very new in fantasy, which often, basically all the time, falls into grand conflicts and grand expeditions and grand worlds and grand everything. You're either Lord of the Rings or nothing, but Legends and Lattes is exactly a beautiful bite-sized fantasy story, very laid back, very cozy, has an LGBTQ relationship at its center. Definitely one that I enjoy a lot because me personally, I love iyashikei stories, also known as healing stories. It's a Japanese term primarily used for different types of anime and manga that, like I said, are very cozy, very low stakes to almost no conflict. This could also apply to something like the Moomin Valley or Winnie the Pooh, like very low stakes, very cozy. For anime, my favorite is Laid Back Camp or Yuru Camp. Very much like just enjoy these characters living their day-to-day lives, because you know real life can be very hectic, it can be very stressful, it can be, especially I think it was iyashikei came about because of economic stress in Japan in I believe the 80s. That's when it started to develop. So I would put Legends and Lattes kind of a little bit like 3/4 into the iyashikei sphere, because of course this is a D&D-esque world. There is of course like some bigger-ish conflict, but overall it is about an orc woman who wants to retire and open a coffee shop. That really is it. I believe there is a sequel releasing very soon. I saw it at a Barnes & Noble event. I believe it is sometime in November. That I forgot what the title was, but I'll put it right here, of course. So I'm very interested to see what will happen next. Hopefully it's more cozy stuff, and I'm excited. And honestly, I usually just try to keep low expectations on second books because I just don't really know which way they're going to swing. But Legends and Lattes did end with a way to keep the plot open, keep the characters open. So we'll see how this goes. I'll definitely be reading the sequel when it comes out, and I highly encourage Legends and Lattes if that sounds like something you're interested in. And so finally, of course, I have to bring up a manga, and this manga I couldn't resist putting it on this list under the cute section, and that is The Girl from the Other Side by Nagabe. There were so many other manga that I could put on. I'm thinking I'll make like maybe short separate videos for this other manga that I thought could work very well for fall. But The Girl from the Other Side by Nagabe was my top choice for this cozy, cute fall pick. The art style is gorgeous, and it follows this little girl, and she is staying with a creature from the forest, but he is a gentleman. He takes care of her. She was abandoned, and overall, like in a Yashike story, it's very cozy. They live in a cottage in the woods and take care of themselves and take care of each other. But unlike in a Yashike story, there is more to it than just this. There is a mystery surrounding the demon that takes care of her, and also the girl herself. Who is she? Where did she come from? How did she end up here? And what is going on with the other humans in this world? What is their goal in regards to the way that their system is set up? And I believe there was talks about an anime adaptation. I think it was by Wit Studio or something, and there was even a Kickstarter for it. Okay, and then I think maybe there was an OVA, but they wanted to kickstart like a full series because Girl from the Other Side has been going on for quite a while. I believe in English there are at least 10 volumes, maybe more. And they've been releasing these gorgeous omnibus collected volume editions that are very gorgeous and in hardcover. But I have some tankobon volumes already, so I kind of just want to keep going with that. But like, the art style is gorgeous, and the anime adaptation, if it ever comes out in the style that matching with the artist's style, it's absolutely gorgeous. Definitely like very simple, but very adaptable and very like watercolory, I want to say. So even in the simplest pen strokes, like, this is an absolutely gorgeous manga. So if you want a manga selection for fall, definitely give this one another try. And also the artist's other works, and mostly concerning the artist's other works, I have some of them. They're mostly short story collections, also involving like animal and otherworldly creatures and that type of stuff, and they're really good. So anyway, that is all from me. Editor Grace, take this over, and I hope your back isn't broken. So I'm going to enjoy this cinnamon bun and enjoy my tea and enjoy the rest of this rainy day inside, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a fun spooky season and kiss your fandom friends. Good night. Bye bye.